Well, I'm very excited about the latest novel. It was a difficult book to write. It took me 3 years to write, but now that it's here, I'm very interested to see how readers respond to it and how they relate to all the characters I've created. I don't think I'll ever feel that I've achieved everything I wanted to. I think whenever you finish a novel, you think about all the things you could have done differently or better or what have you. It's a very different book, this book. It's much more ambitious, it's much more complex. I'm happy with it, but I can also see things that I would go back and change. But I think that's natural and that's normal. Well, in The Girl on the Train, Rachel is the protagonist. She's a character that I thought about for a very long time, and she was close to me in a lot of ways. There's a lot about me that's in Rachel, not everything, but there's a lot of similarities. I think in this book, in Into the Water, there's a bit of me in lots of different characters. So there's some of me in Jules, who's very insecure at certain times in her life, and there's some of me in Nell, who's very focused on her work in quite an obsessive way. So there's parts of me in lots of different characters. There are a few times I've had where I thought that I remembered something very clearly from my childhood, and I'll speak to my mother about it, and she'll tell me, oh no, it didn't happen like that, or you weren't even there that day, but you've seen a photograph, so you think you remember. And it's very disconcerting, very confusing to have someone tell you, no, you don't remember that. You think you remember that, but you don't remember that. And usually it's not important. It's a small thing, it doesn't matter. But in this book, the question I'm asking is, what if that thing that you remember is actually very important? It's fundamental to the person that you become. And then you discover later it's not true, then what happens to you? Oh, well, I think what I'm saying is that I think that none of us can really predict how we would behave in very extreme circumstances. So hopefully we won't have to find out what we would do in extreme circumstances. But I think I'm often asked, do you think anyone could commit a murder? And I think probably, yes, in the right circumstances, if they feared for someone they loved or for themselves or what have you. But I think people are capable of great goodness as well. But or heroism or bravery, I think most of us don't show that every day, but we might be called on to behave in extraordinary ways. It's difficult to say which particular things, because every experience you have as a child, I think, or as a young person, goes to make you the person that you become. But so there are aspects of my family life and the kind of life that we lived in Zimbabwe, which I think have been very important to me as a person. So my work ethic, for example, comes from my father, and I think my political consciousness comes from living in a very divided, conflicted society, and I learned about that when I was quite young. So I think that has in part shaped the person that I became. I returned to Zimbabwe last year, just very briefly, but it was the first time I'd been for 16 years. 16 years, I think, yeah. And 18 years. You're right, 18 years. And it was very, obviously the country has changed a lot. It was a very, it was a difficult experience, but it was also very, it was very rewarding too. Well, I think they're happy about it. Yeah, of course, my parents are very proud and very, well, I think they find it quite strange, but they are happy, obviously. I had an idea for a novel set in Zimbabwe, and then I put it aside for now, but I think it may be something that I will pursue later. But it's quite difficult for me to write about things from that part of my life. I think I'm very nervous that I would get something wrong or that it wouldn't be true. So it's perhaps something I'll return to when I'm feeling very confident and very, ready to tackle those subjects. Well, I have two main editors. I have an editor in London and an editor in New York, and they're quite different in their approaches, but I think that they both made the books better, tighter, pacier. I'm somebody who resists editing, but I know that it's good for me. I know that I must listen to other people's voices sometimes. Yes, I hope so. I think I'm interested in writing characters who are complex and challenging and as complicated as the people we see around us. So I don't tend to write heroes or heroines or villains. They're people who are just muddling through, doing their best, getting things wrong, trying again. I think I write about people who are living ordinary lives that have gone very wrong, and then try and unpick, how would people behave, how they develop. But they do tend to be quite complex, and they're not difficult and not necessarily likable or easy people. But I think those are the characters that I find fascinating, the ones that are quite difficult to like. In this book there are more men, and they play a bigger role, but I'm fundamentally more interested in the women themselves and in their relationships to each other, how they treat each other, how they support or don't support each other. Well, I wouldn't think of myself as an activist, but I am a feminist, certainly, and I think that inevitably the feminism comes through in the book, so I hope that people will read it and it will provoke thoughts, provoke them perhaps to action or what have you. So I think of it as a feminist book. I was offered the opportunity to write a novel. Somebody asked me to write a romantic novel, and I'd come to the point in my journalistic career that I think I was ready to move on, to try something new, and so I wrote these 4 novels under a different name, so 2 of them did okay, 1 of them did terribly, but I was just finding my way. It wasn't something I made one decision, I'm leaving journalism, I'm going to write fiction. I was kind of going backwards and forwards for a while, but I'm much more comfortable and much happier writing fiction than I was as a journalist. Yes, this suits me a lot more. This is much more the subjects that I'm interested in. I'm interested in the sort of darker side of psychology, and I'm much more interested in tragedy than comedy, I'm afraid. So those are the stories I find intriguing. Yeah. I always loved reading and writing as a child, as a teenager in my 20s. I wrote fiction all the time. I didn't show it to anyone. I was always trying to write novels and then deciding they were terrible and throwing them away and starting again. I've always loved reading, I've always been interested in books. I just didn't really think of it as a career path for me. And I was very interested in journalism and current affairs, so for me that was a more practical way to go. I knew how to get a job as a journalist. I didn't know how to be a writer. It took me a long time to figure that out. Well, I think anyone who writes fiction, you have moments where you daydream that you're going to have a bestseller and it's going to be wonderful, and then you know that actually for most people that never happens, and you're just slugging away quietly. So you dream about things, but you don't expect them to happen. So I didn't ever think this would happen to me. I didn't think the book would ever be, The Girl on the Train would be a huge phenomenon. That was extraordinary. As in terms of what I want to do as a writer, I want to keep improving. I want to be more ambitious, to tell different kinds of stories. I am interested in becoming, I hope to become a better writer. I want to write, I will probably continue to write thrillers, but I want them to be better, more interesting, deeper, more complex, more rewarding thrillers. Yes, I hope so. Well, for now, I don't know. Maybe in 5 years I'll have moved on. Okay, so my favorite writers, I don't think anyone's ever heard of them here, but Kate Atkinson, Pat Barker, Margaret Atwood. I tend to read a lot of contemporary novels, so some crime, but mostly just literary fiction. Yeah, the book was financial advice. It was aimed at women specifically because there's this, I'm not sure if it's true everywhere, but certainly in the UK, women tend to be don't tend to be the ones who manage the money. They often leave managing money for the husband or for their partner. So it was trying to get women to engage with their own financial futures and to invest in stock market or what have you. So it wasn't, the advice would apply to anyone, but we aimed it at women. But I must say that book, I wrote that a very long time. It was like 2003, I think, that book. And the world has changed. That advice, I don't think is very good anymore. Yeah, well, that's one way. I have a nicer house than I used to. I bought a new apartment.
An apartment?
Yes, in London, in central London. So, yeah, so Clerkenwell. Yes. I'm going to executive producer, so basically I'll consult on the script. They'll show me, I'll give them notes, we'll talk. No, not money, no. Just as a consultant sort of thing for the script. I believe it's going to be set in the UK, but I don't know for sure because they might change their minds. That when we don't have a director yet, so maybe when the director comes, they might have a different idea. You just don't know with films what's going to happen. It's a mystery. I had a really good experience with Hollywood, with The Girl on the Train. I wasn't really involved, but I visited the set and I met the actors and I went to the premiere, and so it was fun. But it's not my world. It's not what I want to do. I'm happier writing novels, I'm always happiest, I think, writing at home. That's where I'm most comfortable and when I feel, where I feel right with the world. But and I don't feel like a celebrity because I'm not a celebrity. But I do enjoy this kind of thing. I enjoy the traveling. I enjoy meeting readers, doing the signings and that kind of thing. It's fun. But the place where I'm most myself is sitting at my desk just making up stories. Not really. I'm very boring. I just sit at my desk and get on with it. Treat it like work. It's work. I'm doing my job, so I don't do anything special. I just sit at home and get. I'd like to be quiet, no music, no noise. I'm a bit the same. I like things to be tidy, because if there's mess, then I feel I need to go and do something about it. So I think it's good to have a clean room with no clutter, no mess. Yes, I am. I'm thinking about it. I've got some ideas. I've got a main character, I think. But I'm right at the beginning, so I'm still working out how it's going to go. I haven't really started writing yet. He's my partner. Yeah.
I thought.